Okay. Since we have limited time, I'm going a little bit fast and straight to the point.
Okay.
My presentation today will be about the decentralization process in Albania, highlighting achievements, challenges, and perspectives. Why Albania and why decentralization. I want to say a few words about Albania, which is a small country in Southeast Europe, and it has a population of 2.8 million inhabitants. It's a NATO member and a candidate country for European integration. Why I have chosen decentralization? It's a topic that I have been following for a while, and it's very high in political agenda over the last 8 years. There have been a lot of interventions in order to advance the decentralization process in all its dimensions. But what is happening is that despite the intensive reforming process, the outcomes and results have been broadly criticized, not only in literature, but also from a political point of view. Before we go to the results, I want to say a few words because maybe not everyone is very familiar with the concept of decentralization. There is not a unique definition, but in general, the concept includes a shift of power and responsibilities from higher level of governments to lower levels of governments. In this case, we are talking about transferring powers from central to local governments like a municipality or a region. It has four main dimensions: political one, administrative, fiscal, and market decentralization. Our focus will be more on the administrative and fiscal one. The first steps towards this decentralizations were moved around 1990, 2020, when the Albanian government ratified the European Charter of Local Self-Government, and its principles were enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of Albania. It followed the adoption of a national strategy for decentralization and the approval of the law on the organization and functioning of local government. Usually, such a reform is also accompanied by a territorial and administrative reform, which divides the country in a new configuration. There have been moved a lot of critics to this process happening in 1990, among which the most important ones were the high fragmentation of the territory, the lack of efficiency in the delivery of public services at local level, the lack of human resource capacities to perform these services, the weak financial capacities, the incomplete legal framework, and as always, there has been a political disagreement on the reform, which all of these reasons have slowed down the progress of decentralization reforms in Albania and also served as a background for the new or the second moment for decentralization of the country, aiming at cost efficiency, better access and higher quality of local public services, development of a democratic local government, and also political reasons were about the fundamentals that drive the new package of reforms towards decentralization. This package also included a new territorial and administrative reform, which amalgamated about 373 local government units into 61 new municipalities. Then it was approved the new national cross-cutting strategy for decentralization and local governance, which also included a new action plan for its implementation. For the first time, we had a new law on local self-government and local government finances. All of these changes aimed at strengthening local governance, not only from the administrative point of view, but also from the financial point of view. As a result, we have a composition of the municipal finances system as by own source revenues and intergovernmental transfers, which were the main two blocks of revenues for municipalities, and the share taxes, the third one, which accounts for less for a smaller share in overall revenues. I won't stop now in this items because when we see the results, I'm going to explain what has happened in each of these in these items. What is important to stress is that despite the fact that every reform towards decentralization has aimed at making municipalities more independent from central government. And that's why we have a structure of revenues, which in theory should provide or should make these municipalities walk on their own. I have put here, based on the OECD methodology, all the sources of revenues, and in this arrow here, we can see that if we stay on the left side of this arrow, we have low fiscal autonomy of municipalities, while as far as we move in the right hand of this arrow, the higher is the fiscal autonomy. And here we have unconditional transfers and shared taxes, which are under full control of the central government. Municipalities have no say on these items, while we have later the unconditional transfer, which at least is regulated by law and is divided by a formula which is approved by an annual law by the central government. Then we have the own source revenues where municipalities have the, let's say, the most of the autonomy in their use and defining a tax rate or tax base, and that's valid only for the local fee and charges. The method that we use is a simple descriptive analysis of main financial indicators of municipalities. Decentralization is a multidimensional topic, and there is not a unique indicator to catch all of these dimensions. That's why we use two categories of indicators. The first one is related to indicators built on the revenue side of the budget of municipalities, while the second set of indicators is related to the expenditure side. All the data are sourced from the Ministry of Finance and the Economy, the National Institute of Statistics, and the project-based portal which collects and publishes with a regular frequency local governance data, finanzadvendore.al. The data are expressed in local currency, which is the Albanian lek, and the time series is from 2010 to 2020. What we can see is that from a structural point of view, own source revenues, which are the mostly autonomous source of revenues for municipalities, account for about 26.6% in 2020 in the overall budget structure of the municipalities, while the rest is defined from those from the money that comes from the central government, being it conditional or unconditional. Here we have some indicators of decentralization based on revenues from all sources of municipalities, disposable revenues, and total revenues. Maybe these are a little bit technical as a definition, but we can say that own source revenues are the ones that municipalities have full autonomy on their usage. Disposable revenues are this source of revenues where we include also unconditional transfers, and total revenues include also conditional transfers. We can see that all of the indicators we have considered here have increased over the last 5 years, at least after 2016, in view of the all the reforms introduced toward decentralizing local governance in Albania. But it's important to note that high level of these indicators has been broadly defined by the intervention of the government of Albania. And this increase is not extended to all municipalities. Overall, we have that on-source revenue trend is determined by the revenues of only one tax, which is the infrastructure impact tax, and it's collected, 80% of this tax is collected in one municipality. And by saying so, I want to stress out that municipalities actually present quite large differences among them, and we have a clusterization in 3 big groups. The first one is the municipality of Tirana, which is the largest municipality and has 1/3 of the population of the country and 80% of the businesses located in this municipality. Then we have 6 or 7 municipalities, medium-sized municipalities, and the rest are all small municipalities. The same thing we can note here is that if we take the indicator of revenues, own source, disposable, and total to general government revenues, we have the same view. We have an extension or advancement of the role of local government in general government, but we lag behind the Western Balkan countries or OECD countries. Here we have the structure of expenditure of the municipalities, where we can see that more than 75% of the expenditures of municipalities go to cover current expenditures, while only 24.2% in 2020 went to cover capital expenditure. In this chart, we want to show the exercising of functions based on the on what money has been used. Here we can see that there are two functions like social protection and housing and community amenities, which are broadly dependent on funds from the central government. While for the other functions, municipalities rely broadly on own funds. The same result can be found if we look to indicators that are related to from the expenditure sides. Municipalities in Albania are responsible for more than 41 functions and competences. But the problem is that being the symmetric decentralization process, the small and the big municipalities have to exercise all these 41 functions, but their fiscal and financial capacities are very quite different between them. Here we have the level of investments from central total investment, local government investment, and what is done with own funds. And we can see that own fund investment are quite low, and they were cut broadly during 2020 in view of the COVID-19 pandemic. Here we can see how municipalities and central and local government share the exercising of functions. We can note here, and it became very evident that what is concerned about social services was managed centrally, while they are functions like defense, for example, where municipalities do not have any competence. To sum up, we have an increased importance of local governance in Albania, both from the expenditure and revenue side. This increase has been determined by the intervention in the legislation regulating functions of municipalities, but performance is largely driven by developments in the municipality of Tirana, which accounts for 1/3 of the population and 80% of active enterprises, and from taxes in two items, infrastructure impact tax and the property tax. Municipalities present high level of disparities among them. They are not financially independent, or they lack financial autonomy and rely on central government funds. They have no flexibility to adapt their budget to changing conditions in a timely way, and they are weak. They present a weak response to internal and external shocks and low resilience. In view of these findings, there are some recommendations or what we need to do in order to achieve those objectives and visions that we have posted into our national cross-cutting strategy for decentralization and local governance. We have to review our decentralization model, pilot asymmetrical decentralization in the case of municipality of Tirana, empower municipalities in financial terms so that we have to avoid situation of unfunded mandates, real fiscal decentralization versus nominal one. We have a nominal decentralization, but in real terms, it's quite low. We have to commensurate functions and funds so that we do not have this problem of unfunded mandates. Strengthen monitoring, especially financial monitoring, increase transparency on the use of public money, and increase accountability of local constituencies. That was all about decentralization. It's a little bit a topic that's not very familiar to the participants. but I'm open to questions if something needs to be clarified.